Mark Thiessen is a former chief presidential speechwriter for President George W. Bush, and Joe Trippi is a former presidential campaign manager for Howard Dean. Both are Fox News contributors. So, Mark, you tell me, as a former speechwriter, whether that was accidental or entirely planned.
Oh, that was entirely planned. I mean, that was she. You can read as you watch her. She's looking down at her text. This is a line that someone wrote for her, or she wrote for herself, and thought this would be really, really smart to say. And look, the hypocrisy here is unbelievable. I mean, if you remember back in February when Scott Walker spoke at CPAC and he was accused of comparing public worker unions to ISIS, the left went apoplectic. The DNC put out a statement, I'm quoting here, if Scott Walker thinks it's appropriate to compare working people to brutal terrorists, then he is even less qualified to be president than I thought. Hillary Clinton just compared half of the American electorate to Al-Qaeda.
What a difference a candidate makes, Joe, because now the DNC has come out and said, instead of trying to manufacture outrage by twisting her words, these Republicans should stop pushing extreme policies. That, on one hand, this is outrageous, and then that's manufactured outrage.
Well, I think you're going to hear the word extreme quite a bit from here on through November of 2016. And I agree with Mark. This was not anything but a planned offering on behalf of Hillary Clinton. Look, and it worked, because we're not talking about emails tonight. We're talking about women's health care. We're on her turf. You know, this is what moved the debate and actually has Republicans engaging her on an issue she thinks, and I think Democrats and I think, will help them in November. Now, Republicans will disagree with that, but we're actually fighting over her language on health care and women, and the GOP being extreme on women's health. And that's a lot better for her than the usual fare that we would be talking about tonight. Servers, emails.
Very tricky. Yeah. On a day when, you know, we get the news that the first word that comes to mind when they think about Hillary Clinton, Mark, is liar.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, we're not actually talking about women's health and Republicans. We're talking about Hillary Clinton comparing half of the American people to Osama bin Laden. That's what we're talking about right now, Joe. I mean, the Fox News poll, 46% of Americans consider themselves pro-life, and 52% of Americans think we should defund Planned Parenthood. She just said anyone who holds that position is the moral equivalent of Osama bin Laden. That is not good for her campaign. She might want to go talk about the emails a little bit more.
No, 52% think that Planned Parenthood should receive federal funding, according to the latest Fox News poll.
Yeah, I don't think that's right, Mark.
52% think they should, and 42% think they shouldn't. But his point is not lost, Joe, that nearly half of the electorate wants the money taken away, and she just called at least 42% of the electorate.
No, she said that you don't expect extreme positions coming from a candidate for president of the United States.
She said the T word. The T word was in there.
Was in there, yeah. But I think the word. Look, first of all, if we're going to talk about words that go over the line, there's a guy who's the front runner in the Republican Party right now.
Can you be more specific?
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, you know. So I'm just saying, like, look, I think one, it's obvious that in at least this election cycle, for some reason, it's that kind of language that is creating controversy, getting attention.
That's an interesting point. So does every candidate in this race get held to one standard? And, you know, Donald Trump, he says these things, it's okay with people. So is it now okay for her to do it, Mark? Can people be outraged when Hillary Clinton says something like this?
Well, they can be outraged, but also I think it looks like desperate. It seems to me like she's saying to herself, my campaign's in trouble. Outrageous statements seem to be working for Donald Trump. Maybe they'll work for me. I mean, you know, this is like her effort to try and, you know, copy Donald Trump. I mean, this is, and also keep in mind, this is on the heels of just the other day when she was making jokes about her email server, saying she wiped it with a cloth, and Snapchat because the messages disappeared. Now she's comparing, you know, a good half of the electorate to Osama bin Laden and the terrorists. This is not a candidate who's ready for prime time. She is not her husband. This is a very bad candidate.
I actually think there's a bit of significant change in strategy. They're not joking about the emails. They're not even talking about it. Yesterday she was out trying to engage Trump, trying to get into a back and forth with him. Today it's the rest of the GOP field. I think you're going to start to see sort of an aggressive get in a fight with the Republicans.
Great to see you both.